We are back. We had just man, that was a great video. That was a great tribute. I'm sure Malcolm will be proud. I mean, this would have been his 97th birthday. Can you believe that? 97.
97
So I
years
believe,
old, man. 100 years. It's amazing the impact that Malcolm had on the world during the short time he was with us, and his words, how they resonate even today. And in listening to the speech, you can understand the things that he was saying, why they had to assassinate him, why they had to. He did say a lot of prophetic, very prophetic things. He started taking the struggle global and the struggle international. Uh, that is something that probably really seriously hastened his departure.
yeah, it definitely did. Same thing with King, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Same reason. You start talking about globalism, you start talking about moving, motivating folks on a global front, you then become a target. And that target was definitely on his back, and enforcing both of them were assassinated for really the same reason. They began
yeah,
to wake up. They were different. They were not the same people that they started out as. And
yeah.
once the FBI got involved, once J. Edgar Hoover got involved, others who were involved, and again, this is all speculation, but we know that they definitely had a hand in it. I believe that there's even supposedly someone on their deathbed that some CIA agent had admitted to being the trigger man, or knowing someone who
Mm,
pulled the trigger. I believe
mm.
for Dr. King. So, um, and then Malcolm X is supposed there was some type of confession as well. So we know that they played a role, and it was because of the change in speech and the motivation that they were able to have outside of the U.S. It wasn't about, no one cared if they marched around and shut down a bridge or set it on a lunch counter. They didn't care about stuff like that. That was domestic. That was more entertaining for the media than anything. They probably enjoyed all that. When you motivating people in the Congo and South America, you're motivating people in Egypt, and you're all around the world starting their own movements. Other governments are like, "Whoa, wait a second, wait a minute. Your people coming over my country and getting them to think differently. They don't want to listen to us now. They want to form their own movements," and that became a problem.
Absolutely. You start talking about taking the struggle globally, that he was talking about. 100 million black and brown people in a few geographic out the world alone. I think that's something that was very, very frightening to the status quo and to the powers that be in this country. And we end up with the results that we got. And things have not, truthfully, changed all that. I mean, anyone who tries to speak out, even today in 2022, all these decades later, is still ostracized. It's still ostracized and turned into a pariah and marginalized, and it's all over for them. They can't earn a living. They don't even need to kill you anymore. They can just assassinate like your Kaepernick and take your livelihood. You know. I want to see welcome. Great dialogue, my brothers and sisters. It is great dialogue. Something that needs to take place. We all need to maintain the vigil. Uh, because if we don't do these things, if we don't play these speeches and react to them and talk about them, then we run the risk of actually noticing that history is repeating itself now. Thanks, Eva. We run the risk of not noticing that history is repeating itself. That and those who don't understand that history are doomed to repeat it. So we have to go over these things. We have to cover these things. It's something I say all the time. We have. If we don't, then anything that they do, anything that they say, anything that they legislate, any laws that they pass, any procedures that they mandate, just become okay. If we don't say, hey, stand up, say, hey, you can't do this to this group or that. And that's something that Malcolm X was all about. Birthday, we thought it'd be a good time to commemorate his spirit and the driving force that he was in our community, and in the world. So, thank you for your comments. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, this is our second year actually of doing a tribute. We had a very good one last year as well, and we want to keep doing this because I think that we have to keep his spirit alive. We have to definitely recognize, the greatness of who he was. This is just one of his many great speeches, but I think what you heard tonight was when we talked about breaking. If you broke the speech down, you saw a different Malcolm X than what you knew as what you see on the TV or what people try to still portray him as. You saw a different Malcolm X here. I pointed it out that basically he exonerated himself of who he used to be. There was a part of the speech that talked about when he was on a plane and someone recognized him, and immediately he had to think about who they probably thought who he still was. This hateful, I hate white people, blonde hair, blue eyed, that kind of a Malcolm. But we saw Malcolm that had already made his Hajj to Mecca and began to see the world in a different light. He began to see people from a Muslim perspective, and you heard about the yardstick method. So I want to get your reaction to that. I mean, did you know the fact that who Malcolm became later in life? It was also about his globalistic approach and how he was beginning to global politics, but it was also the fact that he was no longer of any real relevance because I think he was more of a entertainer, if you will, was making these speeches about hating. What you understand is that it was totally okay with his separatist movement. You probably wonder, like, how did he get it? How he wasn't killed for calling a white person a cracker or a devil? You probably wonder why he didn't get killed then. That only added to what they wanted the agenda to be in the first place. This whole separate black and white thing is not something that you all think is a bad thing to the globalists or people who are really running this country. What the problem was when he started spreading his message of becoming together and mobilizing black folks and brown people on a global front down in South America and the Latin movement down there, and also in Africa, that's when it became a problem. So him calling somebody a cracker, a devil, they could care less about that. Malcolm would have still been here today if he stayed in that mind frame. If he stayed in that place, we would see Malcolm right now at 97 years old. We still would celebrate him. So I want to get people's reaction to what they heard tonight in terms of who Malcolm was, or what are some of the thoughts on what we broke down in terms of the speech itself. We didn't go through the whole thing, but we did pick out pieces that we thought was relevant. We thought that would be good to highlight. So I see some folks are in the comments. We do thank you all. Jessica, you dropped a GoFundMe. If you want to kind of explain on that, I can't click the link right now, but if you want to explain a little further what that's all about, we'll be interested to hear what that's pertaining to. But yeah, I thought this was eye-opening, and it felt good to actually be on campus. We all came together. Nay is one of our good followers, and she was surprised to see us all together because the last 2 years we've been, 2.5 years now, we just have been doing what you see here, on these virtual conversations. So to get us all in the same space was great. The energy was great in the room, and I think you all saw us sort of vibing off one another with a good conversation.
Excellent conversation, very enlightening conversation. There were some points about Malcolm X that came out that people may or may not have been aware of. Malcolm X was a great world leader, a great statesman. He was cut down in his prime because he was right, because he was telling the truth, and because he had the ability to unite hundreds of millions of black and brown people and motivate them to move in one direction, or in the same direction or a similar direction. And that's something that really frightened mainstream United States and Europe and the powers that be across the world who are controlling the world right now. They knew that Malcolm was that person. So, hey, we see the results. We see the results, and what we have to do is keep his memory alive, keep his words alive, keep his mission and what he did alive and still in the forefront today, so that people can understand why he had to be assassinated, so that people can understand that he was not the pariah that they painted him to be. You know, that he was a very serious statesman with a lot of very valid points about the United States and Europe and Asia and Africa. So I think he bears a second and third and a fourth book. Mike Michael showed up. In Africa at the time, Africans were fighting to throw the whites out. You can't have that conversation in the U.S. I think one example of what happens to countries that successfully throw whites out is Haiti. And what happened in Haiti and what's been happening in Haiti ever since, they just don't do business with Haiti. They don't give Haiti any aid. They don't give Haiti any credit. Haiti is the one country in the Western Hemisphere, and it's the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. So I think in this day and age, especially in the modern era, no, that conversation is not being had. It's not being had. They don't want anyone to discover the type of shit they've been pulling to make things happen for themselves in Africa and Asia and the Middle East and the like. So, no, that conversation not being had. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, I think that's a good comment, Mike, because you're right. I think that's one of the things that actually Malcolm actually admired is that you had the African nations at the time who were wanting to be liberated, who were actually overthrowing their the current governments there. They were actually the colonizers, as we like to say now. They were throwing them out. You're right. They were be liberated. So I think that's one of the things that King and Malcolm X saw as inspiration. If they can do it, so can we. So I think they actually went there to actually learn and actually get some ideas on what they were doing and how it could be done in the United States. And when that again, that's another piece of putting a target on the back. That wait a minute, is that what you plan to do? So if you're going to go over and talk to your African brothers and what they're doing, wait a minute, you might decide to come over in America and decide to use those same tactics here. So they began to become fearful of Malcolm X. They began to really believe that he had that type of influence. Now, when he left the Black Muslim movement, the Nation of Islam at the time, under the leadership of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he didn't take over as many followers as he had under that leadership. So some may say, well, how was he a threat? He only took over maybe, I think at the time, I'm throwing a number out there, maybe 300. Which is not a lot compared to how many were in the mosque all over the country at the time. But he still was Malcolm X. He still was a world-renowned activist, if you will, or a world-renowned orator, or someone who can definitely can fill up a room of people and influence the minds. That's when you become dangerous. That's when you become a problem. Okay, and so unfortunately, they didn't look at the fact that Malcolm was no longer this ranting racist, if you want to call him that. He was no longer this person who was talking about separating and living separate and kill whitey. Although I don't think he ever said that at all. But you might find some people that might think that he did say something like that. But that never came out of his mouth because he was still a Muslim. He still had to go along with his religion. Was never condoned killing anyone. Now, he talked about fighting back. He talked about stop all the singing and start swinging. He talked about not turning the other cheek, but there was never any rhetoric about killing anyone. So, but his character was assassinated at that time because of what his comments said against white people, which was not accepted at that time in America. But the fact that he then changed into the person of togetherness and then measuring someone by using the yardstick method, that wasn't enough to save him, because even though he changed on that front, he also changed to, well, hey, I still think there's a problem in America, which we talked about in this speech. I still think there's an issue because when I come home, I'm not seen as brothers to everyone. I'm only seeing me, a few people or someone who looks like me may consider me to be their brother, but someone of another race doesn't see me that way. And so because of that, I still have a fight that needs to be had. There's still problems in this country that I still have to tackle. So what we have to understand is that Malcolm wasn't done. He was really just beginning a brand new movement that was cut real short. They only had a couple speeches that you're going to be able to hear with this type of language, this type of information he was giving out. He was talking about Black people loving and returning to Africa and to embrace their Africanism. That's something Malcolm wasn't talking about when he was under Elijah Muhammad. So that is the reason why he only lived 7 days. Unfortunately, one of the reasons why 7 days later he was assassinated.
Yeah, and the if you read certain books, COINTELPRO being one of them, which was came out a really long time ago. They called him a potential messiah that could unite the masses against the status quo. Messiah is the word that they use. That could unite the masses against the status quo. And that was something that they were really very, very concerned with, because I think the status quo, the mainstream of the world, has achieved a place of power and prosperity that is built on something that's very, very fragile. It's built on some lies and some myths that are not as strong as what we think they are. I think the foundations of white supremacy and racism are not as strong as what we have perceived them to be over the last, couple 100 years. And as those things begin to crumble, and that fabrication that is white supremacy and that offshoot that is racism begin to unravel, we see why Malcolm's work was so important. The things that he did and said were so important because we stand on the shoulders of that particular giant, that particular genius. And we can talk here today freely the way we are because of the work that he did, And with this being his 97th birthday, I think it's just appropriate that we pay homage to a master statesman and leader and orator that he was, So, wow. It's wonderful feeling to be able to commemorate this brother this way, to be free to have this discussion.
Yeah, it's I definitely feel as if, someone put in the comments, and I wonder what Malcolm will be saying today. We just are trying to, we're still trying to process the gruesome killings, the murders of the victims in Buffalo. And what would Malcolm say today? Someone might think, will he return back to the some of his previous talk of somebody might say hate speech? Would he return back to that, or would he still feel as if he should take on use the yardstick method? Would he still be that person? I think that if we look at what is going on today, which I'm responding to a comment saying history repeats itself, because we know that these type of assassination, these type of killings and mass murders have happened all throughout the history of this country. I think that Malcolm would definitely be speaking out against it. He may not be speaking out in the way he was before in the early 60s, but he would definitely address the situation because he was doing it at the time of his speech. He still was addressing the problem with racism, but he was looking at the problem from a different lens. So we have to look at it in the same perspective as what he would do. We have to do now. We have to tackle the issue of we still need to talk about racism in this country. That's still a problem. It's here. It hasn't went away. They've killed off our leaders, but that doesn't mean that we're going to stay mute and just let the stuff keep happening. That's why we're here today. That's why we have this group, to have conversations and also to you to begin to think about how you can mobilize and to combat this white supremacy. So we don't have to worry about these extremists and these nationalists and those who are coming out of the woodworks now, who are being bred in this country to hate black people, to hate brown people, to hate anybody outside of the color white that are you walking around with on a daily basis, that you are sitting around in restaurants with that would kill you in a second if they could. This is what we have to discuss. We have to pick up the mantle that Malcolm left, even though he left it so long ago. We're not only just commemorating his birthday, but we're commemorating his legacy and how we all can take a part in and to keep that what I think would be his hope and his dream, that we would carry on the fight that he was just beginning before he was assassinated, unfortunately. That we need to carry that on. So we don't only want to just say happy birthday to him, but what the purpose of the speech is, we want to think about what he was talking about and how we can relate that to today's issues and how we can maybe formulate our own ideas along with what he was talking about in that speech. Because the problems exist that were happening then are the same problems existing today. It's almost prophetic the way he was talking, because you can insert a lot of what he was saying and it's relevant today. It's very prophetic in a lot of his speech. And he might have knew he was. I think Amari said that he knew it was over. I think Martin knew it was over as well in one of his last speeches. But we were blessed to be able to get some of the last words out of those greats. And we want you all to definitely fill in the comments. We have a couple of them put up here now.
So we got a couple of nice comments up there. Yeah. And I think that comment is particularly relevant because Malcolm spoke about that in his speech, and being calm and collected when he spoke to deliver the message, because that way the message would be better received. And he would have been much more powerful if he had been. I think that's the lesson we all learned from Obama. Obama was president for 8 years. He never raised his voice. He never came out of his face. He was always very calm, very collected, very measured. Regardless of what his politics were, whether you disagree or not. He never raised his voice. He never screamed and hollered and yelled. He was always very cool and collected. And I think that if Malcolm had crossed that bridge fully, he would have been that much more powerful. So yes, I agree. Thank you. And, James Harris, also a nice comment. Thank you for your comments.
Yeah,
It's great comments. Yeah. So,
Michael. Yeah.
I think if Martin Luther King and Malcolm X were on the way to finding some common ground, especially after Malcolm X made his pilgrimage and found himself a more accepting human being. He wasn't accepting of everyone unconditionally, because he did look at a man's deeds, judged them by the yardstick method that we talked about in the presentation. But I think they were on their way to discovering some common ground, and they would have been able to do some great things had they been able to collaborate and work together, which is another reason why neither one of them is here, why they both died as very young men.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think that you're right. It was no point, especially after I think he found himself when he went to Mecca. I think he really found who he really wanted to be. I think at the time of him accepting the teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Master Farah Muhammad, really taking someone, finally took him under his wing. You gotta understand Malcolm's life. He really didn't have, his father was killed at a very young age. And so I think that basically what he found was someone who really, someone found him in prison and took him under his wing there. And then one of the brothers then introduced him to the Elijah Muhammad. I think that he was, he needed that. I think he was looking for someone to basically be a father figure to him. So I don't know if I don't know if he would have went to Mecca first. Like, let's say he came out of prison, went to Mecca, realized that there's no whole other world out here outside of the U.S. would he have even stayed in the Nation of Islam as long as he did? I don't know. There was a number of questions of was it because he found out that the alleged children that Elijah Muhammad had outside of his marriage, was that the reason? There were different speculations of why he left, but I don't think at the time that when he made this speech, and then also who he is now, would it still been, and if he was still 97 right now, you're right. It was no point of him to become aggressive or to be what you saw some of his speeches, him, speaking out against white people and devils and blah, blah, blah. I think that he has so much knowledge that he was able to gain over that particular period of time by leaving the United States and by gaining other knowledge and seeing other leaders and sitting down with them and then also learning from them, that I think that is pure genius. And I think that people wanted to hear what he had to say on that front more so than anything. So, and that did humble him. I think that him able to see that I now can leave the United States, I now can learn from other world leaders, and I still have the influence. No matter where I go, people know who I am. He was humbled by that. In his mind, he probably thought, these people probably hate me. Look at my previous speeches I made. Look what I said. But I think that,
and he was meeting with world leaders. He wasn't meeting with church leaders or, business leaders. He was meeting with the heads of state, leaders of countries, and they were sympathetic to his cause. And these are people with real in the world, people who had control of oil, had control of natural resources, and that's something that the United States damn sure couldn't contend with, because he was no longer a person who was advocating specifically about people nobody cared about, which was African Americans, black and brown people in the United States. He was an individual who was advocating for people all over the world over. And had he been able to continue his work, the landscape of the world would be vastly different today. Vastly different had he and Martin Luther King and, let's say, some of the others who were assassinated not been assassinated, not been killed. And something that we talked about in the presentation, who else among us right now, today, has the courage to march right on ahead into the machine guns, march right into the assassin's bullet, or the character assassin's machine to destroy you like they did to Kaepernick, or anyone else who ever tried to stand up, So it's really a sad commentary that we've made so little progress in the midst of all that we have made. It's been 2 steps forward and 2.5 steps back in a lot of ways. And it's a sad commentary that, Malcolm X's words still have so much relevance today. There were some parts of this speech where he spoke specifically about the cowardly nature of the Ku Klux Klan, and the Ku Klux Klan now today has integrated a lot of them into law enforcement and things like that. And we see some of the same behavior in those organizations as we saw in the Ku Klux Klan of the Civil Rights era. So it's really, like I said, a sad commentary that what he was saying in 1965 and before that still resonates today.
Yeah. I like this. I'm gonna put his comment back up here because it's so true. You kind of touched on it a little bit, Tim, but you're right. I mean, we talked about that, and you saw in the video we did that we talked about leaders that are, as Malcolm X talked about as well, that they give us leaders. And it is sad that, we really haven't had a leader like Malcolm X ever since. We really haven't. Entertainers, yeah. I don't think they can fill the shoes of Malcolm X. I don't think they're that bold and that courageous enough to do what he did. And you're right. That, celebrities are paid more now than ever. But Malcolm always talks about that. Why is it that they always pick the celebrities, the entertainers, as to be our leaders? And we need to stop looking towards them as to be our potential leaders, because really they see their role in life as just a job. Like it's my job to entertain you, to make an album, to make you dance or make you sing or rap. But our leaders often shouldn't necessarily come from them. Because oftentimes we look at those particular people to be leaders, and they're the wrong ones. Those are the handpicked leaders. And
well, we had a celebrity for a leader. We had a celebrity for a leader in the United States for 4 years, and we see how that turned out. You know?
Right.
We had a game show host. We had a game show host for a president, leader of the free world, reality TV host. You know, see how that turned out. We see how that turned out. I think we're in a much worse place now globally for the United States having elected a celebrity entertainer as the ruler of the free world, as arrogant as that statement may be, is from an American standpoint. But we shouldn't be trying to follow in the footsteps or pull on the coattails of entertainers and reality TV stars and game show hosts. We should be looking to scholars and professionals who really have an idea of what's going on.
Right. We definitely should. It's a
album sales can't give off the impression of intelligence. Agreed, Nene. Agreed on your Donald Trump sentiment as well. Our representation in Black America has traditionally been placed before us by status quo, by the mainstream media. And yes, a lot of times it is athletes and entertainers that are thrust upon us as our leadership. Like the Republican Party is right now trying to thrust her down a lot of people's throats. You know, this ex-football playing knucklehead who has spent more of his time lying about himself and his credentials than anything else. But the Republican Party and a lot of the mainstream feel that because he is Black and he is a successful leader, that Black America will pay homage to him the way we pay Malcolm X. And I think it's just not true. Yeah. And many of our leaders don't lead because they can't. They can't. I think the gridlock works exactly the way it's supposed to. Everybody's eye gets in there, and they all get stuck in the gridlock, and nobody can move. You know, we don't have any groundbreaking leaders right. A leader right now who's doing jaw-dropping things and saying jaw-dropping things and illuminating really serious problems the way they should be illuminated. We don't have that right now. And Gigi talked about something Malcolm said in the speech about being able to have your brothers and sisters in Ghana or in Gambia or in the Congo before you could have your brothers and sisters in this country. And I think that's what's been happening by and large. I think a lot of our more affluent people, these athletes and entertainers especially, are taking their money to Africa and setting up schools and institutions and things in Africa to improve the things over there, and where they would probably meet more obstacles here if they tried to do it here. So, there's something said that is resonating still. So yeah, man.
I'm gonna drop a link in the chat. If anybody, it's just something we didn't plan to do, but I'm gonna go ahead and just do it anyway. If somebody is inclined to come and talk with us live, we will invite you on to have a discussion. We say we want to be on for only 30 minutes. We're on here a little over 30, but people are still rocking with us. So let's kind of continue on. If anybody wants to jump in and have a live conversation with us, other than make comments, please click that link and we'll have you on. If not, we'll just go ahead and keep reading these comments for just a few more minutes, and then we'll probably just jump off here. Nay says athletes are going to use their platform to jump point. Okay, something placing so much faith that they'll make much of a difference. Right?
They won't make much of a difference because they're not trained to. They didn't spend their life training to make a difference in the community. They spent their life training to get to the hoop or the uprights or across the goal line or what have you. Are they concerned with it? You never really know. Look how much Jordan said during his heyday about the state of Black America. It was almost nothing. It was almost nothing. You know, and I don't know what Shaq has said, or how much Kobe was saying, or how much Tyler Perry is saying, because you don't hear it in the news. You don't hear these things online. You know, if they are saying things, they're very highly censored, so you can't get it. You can't get it. So who's leading? Who's leading? Is it Kaepernick? Is it Tyler Perry? Is it Ice Cube? Who's leading? Who's in charge of the Black community? Who's helping us to figure out what's next and how we can improve? Who's pointing out the pitfalls and the snares and the traps the media sets down? Who's doing that for us? The answer is nobody. Nobody. Not a soul. But we have Oscar winners. You know, we have great Oscar winners. We have, Super Bowl trophy recipients, and, we have Grammy winners, and, so, yeah, we do not ship in the Black community. We do not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah, we don't, unfortunately, and it's something that I think one of the reasons why we are here. We want to motivate leaders. We're not. I think we're basically a think tank. We are a thought starters. We're conversation starters. We're a place to discuss issues. But I think our real role here is to motivate people who are listening to become those leaders. This is not something that's entertainment. We're here to basically see if we can motivate those in your own communities to become the next Malcolm X or the next Martin Luther King. We need someone else. We can't keep celebrating the same people over and over again, but we need some new folks. Let me see if I can bring Nay on.
Hey.
Oh, there she is. Okay.
Yeah, I had to disconnect from my Bluetooth. My car doesn't like using it.
Okay. For folks who don't know, this is Nay. She's been with us for over a year now. She came on a couple of times, and glad to have you back on with us.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I've been so busy with work lately, but I had the chance to hop on today, and I'm glad I did. But I feel like right now we're really struggling to kind of find those real leaders, those community leaders that really care about community and aren't using it as a jump point to make themselves, elevated in their own status. Because I feel like right now, a lot of people that we see as influencers or entertainers and athletes, we put so much stock in just their sheer popularity with people that their lack of intelligence gets looked over. And then they get a platform to speak. And I'm like, nope, that's how we end up with people like Donald Trump. There's not an intelligent bone in that man's body unless it's meant to swindle somebody. And we don't want a swindler to be a voice of reason in our society. We've had too much of that at this point. And I think that voices like Malcolm X's or Martin Luther King's are so far and few between that they get drowned out right now. And I think that we really need to put more of a focus again back on, education and where people, the quality of people who are educating our youth these days, because everyone's looking for a quick come up now, and it's not doing any of us any good at this point. And it's something that, my group especially has trying to switch their gear of helping more of the youth in the community, and helping them get, an education outside of school that they might not be getting right now, because I feel like our school systems are failing us right now, because the government, and it's a cycle of just destruction all over that I've been noticing. But we do what we can in the little time that we have here and hope that it makes some type of an impact. But I feel like if we're going to put stock in celebrities these days, we need to figure out, which one of them are actually doing something with their platform that they turn around and put back into the actual community. Because, I mean, I know that after Colin Kaepernick got kicked out of the NFL, he really did take that as a turning point to like go and speak to the youth and start these, you know, community outreach programs that really started at home and, you know, gave them a voice, gave them the strength to and the means to like find their own voices. So I think that, you know, and give them the education that they need to back their voices, because a lot of people will just talk into a empty hole, and there's nothing there to substantiate what they're saying anymore. It's just who can be louder and the loudest and get the most likes or the most followers, and it's not doing anybody any good at this point.
I'd like to go back to something you said about the education system being, failing a lot of people. I think the education system is doing for a lot of people exactly what it's meant to do. Under Trump, Betsy DeVos was the Secretary of Education from Grand Rapids, Michigan, which happens to be my hometown, right? When she's a Dutch woman, and Grand Rapids is one of the most racist places you ever want to be. And she comes from one of the richest families in Grand Rapids politics. So that education system that we rely on so much is and always has been doing exactly what it's supposed to do for mainstream society, which is
for sure.
Screwing their heads up, screwing them up too.
Well,
and the whole thing needs to be revamped. We need to start from scratch.
And to piggyback off of that, I mean, one of the quotes that Donald Trump literally said to the public and the masses was, if I'm going to run for president, I'm going to appeal to the Republicans because they're stupid and they'll listen to anything I'll say. And they were like, we know we won't. And then here we are. He got him real fucking good. And now people who are of sound body and mind and have a solid education sound like lunatics because the masses have all jumped onto this ship of, you know, we'll just follow the loud noise. And when we get it's like insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And what I'm seeing on, you know, really right-wing extremist pages and groups and chats is just this constant perpetual cycle of like really, really dumb sayings getting all of this attention and then being founded in fact when it's not. And then everyone else is just gobbling it up. And then they're like, we've been educated. We know what's going on. And I'm like, I mean, but no. And here's why. And then I give, you know, what I was taught, a bunch of facts that have been, you know, proven to be facts, and then hand it back to them, and they're like, this is just all crap. I don't understand any of it, but this makes sense. And I'm like, who taught you though? Like, where did you get your education? And I think that the more that we can educate ourselves and stop relying on these systems to do it for us, and to be able to genuinely think for ourselves, not just follow the crowd and assume we're thinking for ourselves, but really do the work to like go back into history, to see things outside of our country, like travel a little bit, see how different everything is outside of your bubble, is to really educate yourself. Because I've traveled a lot and seen a lot of things at my young age, and a lot of it is just so much more different than what you'll ever learn in a classroom, where that knowledge is pre-filtered before it ever gets to any of us to be what is acceptable. And what's been the norm of acceptability in education is white history. It has no other counterpart to it, and nobody wants to talk about that. There were so many things I learned in the last 2 years that I thought I was a history buff, and I feel stupid. So I can't imagine how it must feel for somebody who's a right-wing extremist, or even just a little to the far right of things, if they ever do wake up, just how robbed of an education that they really will feel if they actually take the time to absorb how much this country has lied to them about what and where we actually came from. and how this country was ever actually built.
I heard
Because
a brother talking about that today. How
I'm
so many people
overwhelmed in the last 2 years.
Yeah, they've been lied to. They've been lied to. The education.
Like, I feel like I was robbed of an education, and I need to like just go back and read every historical book prior to any sort of American history that I've ever been taught, because it's just nothing aligns right. How did we go from, like you guys were talking in your video before this chat, the live stream, like, are we, like Isaac said, are we talking about, brown Jesus who had hair like wool, or are we talking about blonde Jesus with blue eyes? Because I every time I get it, because I grew up with a lot of very religious white Baptist people, I'm like, y'all know that Jesus is definitely black, right? And they just start like, oh my God. And I'm like, yours or my dad? Or, we talk about two separate people right now. Where are you getting your history from?
In the world of the blind, it's the sighted people who are crazy. That's one thing.
And I'm like, no.
To your Donald Trump insanity. And then the other thing is, I think it was Ringling, one of the Ringling brothers, with the circus people, said you will never go broke underestimating the intelligence of the American public. Okay,
it's just a lot of really stupid people out here, and I don't mean to like insult anybody. I just like to call it how I see it. And if you act stupid, I mean, like, I can give you some material to read, but I can't force you to read it at the end of the day. If you want to stay in your ignorant bubble, it is what it is. And I think it's finding that voice, or the way that we can teach ourselves to speak to people like that is really going to make any type of a change. Because we can sit here and humanize, people that are racist and all this, and like really try and like be like, look, like, I know you were taught this, like, how do we break that down? But if they don't want to listen, if we can't find a way that helps them listen, we're going to be in this constant back and forth struggle of, I can be as patient as I can be, but if you don't want to help yourself, like, see that you were wrong and accept that, like, it's all about that, finding a way to like rebuild these building blocks of like what it is to be an acceptable human being at the moment. Because right now we just nobody knows how to talk to each other. They don't. It's very disappointing to see this much hatred just being perpetuated on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely agreed 100%.
Well, we definitely appreciate you having you on, Nay. It's always a pleasure. Shout out to tell people who you got something going on. I think people need to know about. I think you so shout out your information if you want to, you feel led to.
Yeah. I volunteer with Visual Black Justice. We're a community-based led organization out of Minneapolis and the Twin Cities at large. Our founder has been around doing this since 2016, after the murder of her father by St. Paul police. And she's really been super active in the community. We do a ton of outreach stuff. Stay tuned. We don't have anything specifically that we are doing ourselves this year for the George Floyd anniversary, but we are supporting a lot of our local communities, organizations that are out there. So we would love it if people want to tune in or make any type of donation to our cause. We'll be doing a lot of helping with the unhoused, as well as just feeding the general community at large right now with, groceries and gas being absolutely ridiculously insanely expensive. We know people are struggling, so our main focus is to just help the community, the BIPOC community out here. We'll be doing clothing and food drives, so any donations to the visualblackjustice.com webpage will be reallocated to the Black community in the Twin Cities area for George Floyd's anniversary this year, which is May 25th, in case anybody decided to fall back asleep.
Right.
I know we all get tired, but stay awake.
You're tired now. We're just starting. Okay. Well, definitely appreciate you having you on. You're always welcome to come back anytime. Just let us know. We may do something special this year with you. You know, I know your
Yeah.
schedule's all over the place, but we try to get you on for a couple of things. But we'll reach back out to you to see if we can get you on again for as a special invited guest.
Some of you are out in Chicago, right?
Yeah, I was out in Chicago. Yeah.
All right. Well, I might be taking a family visit out there. So if I end up in Chicago, I'll try and link up with him, see if we can't get something going.
Nice.
Oh, for sure. Sure. He would love
absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it. It's nice meeting you.
Yeah, it's always awesome to have a chat with you guys.
For sure. All right, Nay.
Have a good night. Stay safe, y'all.
You too.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Cool. So we've been on for almost an hour. People are still rocketing these comments I see here. We definitely appreciate a lot of good comments. We try to put them up as they come in. We can't necessarily comment on all of them. I see some of you are all going back and forth in the comments, replying to what people are saying. So we love that. Again, like I was saying, this is not about us. This is about you all. So definitely get you all talking, connecting. Feel free to, if you want somebody to connect with you, drop your information in the chat. Put your websites out, put your emails out, put your social media hands out there, so people can start connecting. That's what we're trying to do here. But tonight, just to bring it back home and reel it in and kind of close out. We tribute to a special man. That we definitely, as Tim said, on the video, was somebody who, or I think you just said a minute ago, you stand on your shoulders. You say you've been standing on the shoulders the last 20 to 30 years. Like, it's the man.
Standing on the shoulders of geniuses like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Medgar Evers and, the fearless people who marched straight ahead onto their deaths for the cause of justice and liberation and the real tenets set down in the Constitution of the United States, not just the ones that apply to some people. Yes.
Yeah, so this is only something we do special once a year, but we always are incorporating his ideology and his genius into our work. And he's definitely an influence to keep us going and why we do the things we do today without we haven't charged anything for this. We didn't ask for any, now I will tell you about some consulting we're looking to do as a means to keep our movement alive, and also not just to help our movement in terms of finances, but also to keep our voices going, but more so in a different type of setting. So I'll talk about that in a minute. But I see some people are dropping their IG information out, some emails out, IG and Twitter. Cool. Yeah, people look these folks up. I'll look them up as well. We want to definitely connect with you all. If you have anything special you would like to talk on a larger, more time that we can talk about, we'll bring you on some special guests. We have no problem doing that as well. Some of you might want to just connect and talk. So let me bring that up now, just so I'm on the subject of it, of some of the things that we're trying to do new. If I can find a slide here. Yeah, so this is our media publishing consulting service that we have. Go to our website, 360collective.online, 360collective.online, and that is where you're going to hear more about some of our services that we offer. If you want to basically take this conversation into a different setting, whether it be in a classroom, whether it be in a corporate setting, whether it be in a nonprofit, we're not here to get rich trying to make money, but we do charge some type of fee depending on what you're looking to be done. We feel as a way for us to also extend our voices. We are all in different cities, so we have a reach that's pretty wide when it comes to this country. So tap in with us. If you go to our website, you'll look up and see our email. You can give us an email. You can call us as well, and we'll be glad to consult with you and see what we can provide. So spread the word. We're going to be talking about this every week as we've been doing. And that's not what I want. So another thing, I want to make one quick announcement while I have people on still. We're going to be coming back next week. We didn't forget. We had a very good conversation about a critical race theory last week. So we said that we would skip a week and come back next week and as a part 2 to the critical race theory. If you didn't catch the first one, go back to our Facebook page and check out the first discussion. And some of you they were on that discussion are here tonight. I appreciate that. I recognize some of the names they were on for last week. They came and joined us tonight. So we're going to be coming back on next week for the part 2, and final part of this lively discussion that we're going to have next week. I invite you all to come back. Also, tell people about this. I think we want to have a larger conversation. We have a lot to get into next week. So, my brother, any last closing words?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for your comments. I want to thank everybody for rocking with us from beginning to end. It's really nice to know that you appreciate what we do. We put a lot of work into it. And it's nice to know that you're rocking with us so hardcore. I want to thank Nene for coming out and jumping on with us and dropping those pearls as she did. That was a cool thing. And I want to thank everybody for their comments. Gorilla Detail, James Williams, and I can't pronounce your last name, Anna. But thank you very much for your comments. It's really, really great to know that you guys are engaged and you appreciate what we do. And thank you for tuning into our tribute to Malcolm X on what would have been his 97th birthday and the important man that he was and is to our community.
All right, most definitely. We want to say, again, thank you again, everybody. And again, happy birthday, Haj Malik El Shabazz, otherwise known as Malcolm X. Definitely want to big up to him and happy birthday to him. So, all right, thanks for joining, and we're going to catch you all next week. Tell a friend. Also, tap into our YouTube page. Also, subscribe there. Hit the notification bell so when we go live. All right.
Thanks, everybody.